sleepover party that felt like it would never end. So this was back in 2018. I was in the 5th grade and got invited to my best friend's birthday party. We will call her Vicky. Me and Vicky are no longer friends currently and probably won't be ever again. Some context is that we had a friend group falling outing where I called out Vicky's homophobia and racism. She said slurs that were very offensive to both the LGBTQ+ community and said slurs that are offensive to Black people, Asian people, Mexican people, and more. I was very excited to go to Vicky's house, and she and I were very excited. I had been friends with Vicky at that point for about 4 to 5 years. So this party was a massive milestone for us. I got to the party to hearing karaoke playing from my friend group's favorite movie. Vicky and another girl were singing the intro to Disney Descendants. I was told by Vicky's mom to drop my bag at the front door. I grabbed my iPad and asked for the Wi-Fi password so I can keep in contact with my family about how things were going. At that time, I was very connected with my parents and family, and when I'm not home, I would text and call my parents good night and updates randomly. Well, Vicky's mom, aka new EM, said no, and when I explained to EM why I needed the password, she harshly told me no again. She said if I want to leave, I need permission from her to use the house phone to contact my parents. I at the time didn't know my parents' number, and I needed to have EM next to me during that call. Well, 30 to 40 minutes of singing, we got bored, and we had to wait for food to arrive still. At that time, I had been there for at the longest 40 minutes, while the others had been there for 2 whole hours. I still don't know what had been going on for those 2 hours, but I'm glad my mom's aunt, whom I'm no contact with, was pulling and braiding my hair, cornrows BTW. Finally, Vicky's dad came home with the food and drinks. Before this, EM told us we are not to have snacks or drinks beforehand. Most of the girls were starving and ran towards the pizza. Most of the girls didn't eat before showing up, and they had been there since around 3 p.m. Some showed up around 2 p.m. I only made it around 5 p.m. So about 6 p.m. we had cleared out as a group 2 or 3 boxes of pizza. EM was mad that we ate so much and stormed out of the house. Vicky said she's probably going to go pick up her brothers from basketball. Also, before anyone say we ate too much or how insensitive of us to eat all the food that had just been provided for us, there was 5 pizzas there. Also, there was a total of 8 or 10 girls there. Currently, this was just about 7 years ago, so I don't fully remember, but there was a lot of girls at this party. I grabbed my iPad to play some Wi-Fi-less games with the other girls while we waited for the next part of the party. I asked Vicky if she knew the Wi-Fi password, but she actually didn't know it. Vicky's mom claims that her children are terrible, so they aren't allowed to know the Wi-Fi password and have a 3-hour time limit on their shared iPad. There was baby child locks on the iPad. They can't download and delete games on the iPad. To sum it up, when Vicky's mom entered the house without her sons, so where had she been, I'm not sure. Vicky begged her mom to download at the time a new game called Gotcha Studio. Yes, I had the app at the time, and no, I no longer play/use the app because of the community. It was strange because when Vicky asked her mom for the app, her mom spoke to her in such a sweet tone. Then afterwards was almost yelling at everyone else in a harsh way. After Vicky got the app and played for a total of 5 minutes, her mom requested the iPad back. She gave it back because she trusts her mom. She did not get the iPad back until almost the end of the sleepover party. After the iPad was taken from Vicky, she instructed us to go to her kitchen and start making her birthday cake. We had to make a giant peppermint brownie cake for Vicky. Even though she was told to go sit down on the couch and stare at the blank TV, she joined us. Vicky's mom told her to go relax even though she passed her certain amount of hours of screen time. This meant she couldn't watch the TV for the rest of the day. Vicky joined us out of boredom. Once her dad came inside from chasing her chickens around for a few eggs, he asked where her brothers were. After finding out her mom had not gotten them, he left to pick them up. After Vicky's dad came back to see a finished brownie that just needs to be baked, he said, "Oh, I'm glad you used those old candy canes. They've been sitting out since 2016. I was grossed out, but they seemed fine, so I don't know if he was joking or not. Something that kept happening was that I would get a soda, take a few sips, and somebody would move it. I found out the next day it was both of Vicky's brothers. I had to keep getting multiple sodas because they would move it next to theirs and the other girl's sodas. In total, I opened about 4 or 5 different sodas, not one of them finished because the boys were drinking from the random sodas. I found that very unsanitary, so I just kept getting a new one. I eventually stopped getting new ones because I was getting tired of opening new sodas just for them to get moved. We found out that there was no more icing, so we just had plain brownies, which I was fine with. When we cut the brownie, I was handed the smallest piece from Vicky's mom. Everybody got a small piece, but I got the smallest due to my misbehavior. What was it that I did wrong, you may ask? I drank 4 to 5 sodas. Due to this, I didn't need any more sugar. At this point, most of the girls left before we could open gifts. I suspect some of them called for their parents to pick them up. I know 1 or 2 girls had their own phone with them. I didn't know my parents' phone number at the time, so I couldn't call no matter how much I wanted to leave. So now at this point, there's only about 3 or 4 girls at the party. It's currently 7:05 p.m., and we head outside to go play on Vicky's playground and get ready to hit the piñata. We were excited, and Vicky asked her mom to be outside and record her and her friends hitting the piñata. EM agrees to be outside and record, but says she's going to take a quick shower first, and then she'll be outside. Well, we waited till almost 9 at night outside for her to return. EM finally comes back when the sky is dark outside. It wasn't too dark, but just dark enough for you to question why you're outside playing still instead of inside getting ready for dinner then bed. We hit the piñata and grab candy. Well, EM didn't like that we all got huge bagfuls and her son's bags aren't as big. EM's sons had big bags full of candy, just not as much as some of us had. So EM made us give 2 big handfuls of our candies to her boys. The boys were both in 3rd grade and 2nd grade. They both were happy with what they got and didn't care if they got more or not. We were unhappy but gave them our candies. We went inside to open presents, but EM insisted we open only 3 presents, then we go see what her grandparents got her. Vicky opened the presents of the remaining girls' items. Then the 2 girls left because their parents came to pick them up. That left me and Andrea. She's not too important to the story, but it would be nice to give her a name. So now was the time for the final gift for the night. Vicky, Andrea, and Vicky's dad and brother got into the van with me, and we drove 15 to 20 minutes out of town. I asked before leaving if they could call my parents and tell them where I'm going, but I was told no. Nobody in the car other than Vicky's dad knew where we were going. Something that happened that made me super uncomfortable was that in the car I was given a flashlight because it would be dark by the time we got where we're going. I turned on the flashlight by accident. Thankfully, it wasn't pointed at any mirrors. When it went off, it hit the ceiling of the van. It was obvious what happened, and Vicky's dad told me not to do it again, which is a reasonable request. He then said in a joking voice, "Don't do it again because you'll blind the driver and will crash," then proceeded to swerve the car, almost crashing. He did this repeatedly for a solid 5 minutes. It was scary mainly because he drove on the wrong side of the road and almost crashed into oncoming cars and parked cars. He stopped, thankfully, and we all moved on like it didn't happen. I was mainly shaken up the most. As we drove, I realized nobody knew where we were going. It wasn't until we got close to the location did Vicky and her brothers knew where we were going. I was getting nervous though. I was in the middle of nowhere pretty much. We were outside some fruit farm, which I won't name which fruit because it'll give away too much information. We pull up and it was dark outside. I was actually scared, and so was Andrea, which I later on found out that Andrea had strict parents and she was told not to leave the house no matter what. She left the house because it would be awkward if she stayed back and would be left basically by herself. EM decided that she wasn't going to go because it would be boring. EM's children begged her to join us, and I was glad she decided to stay home and do work. Off topic, Vicky had a puppy, which she later on told me they locked it inside a shelf closet. A tiny closet with shelves almost touching the ground. The closet could support a thin, small child if you tried to put somebody in there. Keep this in mind that the dog has been in that closet the whole time and was locked in there for almost a full 24 hours. Back to the main story, we stayed out there for about 30 minutes just to find nothing was out there but an old treehouse which was about to collapse. The gift was that Vicky's grandparents paid to get a new treehouse for her, and she gets to pick out where the new treehouse will go. She picked the middle of the fruit farm and asked if we could drive farther out. Thankfully, her dad said no. I also later on found out that we were right in the area where commonly tarantulas, rattlesnakes, and other possible dangerous animals tend to lurk. We finally get back and watch The Greatest Showman, which was Vicky's favorite movie at the time. We were all given small bowls of popcorn, and when I tried to get more like Andrea I was told no harshly and to save some for everyone else. Everybody else had gotten about 2 or more bowls of popcorn. I was so ready to go home at that point, but had no way to tell my parents to pick me up. The movie ended, and we were told to go to bed. When I ran downstairs to bring my bag of clothes upstairs and see if I could get Wi-Fi or guess the Wi-Fi password to tell my parents to pick me up, was at the top of the stairs waiting for me. She told me to hand over my iPad and I could get it back in the morning. So I handed it over. I was stuck there for the rest of the night. I was too scared to ask if I could call my parents to leave or stand up against her. So I went to Vicky's room to sleep. By morning, everyone was very distant towards me because I stayed the night. I got up first, made my bed, and got dressed because I just wanted to leave. Me, Andrea, and Vicky headed downstairs once we heard wake up. The rule was don't leave your room for breakfast or to be downstairs in the morning until is downstairs. Andrea stayed the night before in the past and even warned me don't leave the room to use the bathroom unless I really have to, otherwise I will get in trouble. We head downstairs, opened the rest of the presents, and then we had breakfast. We all got 1 pancake, only Vicky's brothers got 2 pancakes, but they were so small it was basically a total of 1. At this point it was almost 12, so I thought it would be fine to have a soda because it was close to the afternoon. When Andrea saw that I got a soda, she also got one. Once we opened the soda, started yelling at us. She wasn't in the same room, but her yell was the kind that parents do when you break a window. She yelled, "Who the hell opened a soda?" She stomped in and snatched our sodas. Andrea looked genuinely scared and said, "You didn't ask if we could have soda?" I didn't think it was a problem before. We got scolded by and she told us both, "We can have water and milk, we need permission for soda and juice." I can understand soda needs a request, but apple juice and orange juice needs permission? I thought it was ridiculous, but I didn't argue because I was terrified. We got yelled at, and she left to sit in the dining room. The dining room is next to the kitchen, but there's a wall that makes it hard for us to see her. She spent most of the party in the dining room. My dad called to tell he's on his way, thankfully. Was talking to Andrea about how Andrea's mom made a joke about how she could live there since she's over so often. I wanted her to think I had an amazing time, so I tried to chime in saying I had a great time, and I would love to stay here sometime in the future again. Side-eyed me and said, "I wasn't talking to you," then rolled her eyes at me. I wanted to leave at that moment. Thankfully, my dad showed up a few minutes later, and before I left, tried to keep my iPad. I asked for it back while my dad was there, and went and got it, but handed the iPad to my dad and not me. She then said to my dad, "Your daughter drank 5 sodas and ate 3 slices of pizza." My dad wanted to leave because he was getting a weird vibe from Me and my dad hurried out. He handed back my iPad, but scolded me for drinking so much soda. It was the worst birthday party I've ever been to. I'm so glad that I grew a backbone finally at the age of 17. Therefore, this would never have happened again, let alone I have a phone that is wireless reception, so I can get out of these crazy situations. Overall, I'm glad I'm no longer in contact with that crazy family.